Free will or destiny? Do we have a choice about what happens to us and an ability to shape that? Or are we destined to experience certain things and not others, no matter how much we try to change that? Um, Usually people believe in one or the other, but both seem to be true. And you can find plenty of experiences in your life, I'm sure, to validate that for yourself. Um, but I think it's nice to think that we have free will and that we have total control over what happens to us. It's a much more freeing thought, but there's also this impending feeling and knowing from your current situation and past ones that you don't have total control over where you're going. And ultimately, I think about it like this is both are true in certain ways, and they both blend together to create this structure that allows us to experience lives how we do right now. But I think one of the ways to think about free will is you're choosing what you want to experience. But I think if you go beyond that and think about the concept of, well, why do you want to experience certain things in the first place? Why do you strive for certain goals, certain experiences, certain lessons, whatever it may be? What makes you like vanilla ice cream more than chocolate ice cream? A simple way to understand it, but what makes you want to be an artist versus wanting to be a parent? You don't get to control that necessarily. It's just an impulse that comes from within. So are you destined to feel the impulses that you feel? Um, and how do you change those impulses? Do you even want to change those impulses? And so maybe the way to think about free will and destiny is more that we're destined or programmed to want certain things, to strive for certain things. And because of that, our destinies and our future is already set on a course. Um, I heard it's put one way, which is we have total free will, but we're so predictable in our actions and people rarely ever change that it's so easy to read us and determine the path that we're going on because we're just so predictable. Um, in that way, you do have free will, but 99.99% of the time, you're not going to change the course that you're already on. Um, just another way to think about this idea that we're programmed to experience the things that we're experiencing and want things that we want. Um, and that's kind of freeing in a sense too. Um, you know, why do you want the things that you want? And if you had control over it at the end of the day and you understood it, the nature or the causes for those things, why would you want anything ever again in the, going forward? Because you know that it's just malleable and it can change and it's so temporary, right? So the destiny piece of things, I think, also has a lot to do with our conscious state, like how advanced that is, which comes mostly from the work of like David or Dr. David Hawkins. He talks about how your vibration dictates what's going to get drawn into your life. And so by that nature, it makes sense that our future is predictable because like attracts like. And so you know what's going to come into the picture because that's what you're magnetizing towards yourself. Um, Now that's a free will thing, but it's also predetermined for the most part. He says that most people never change their conscious state in the life, and that they may change, but it's so minimal that it's almost negligible. Um, I don't know if that's changing at all recently or whatnot, but it's an interesting way to understand it. And so, we all have these drives and goals and desires, um, but we never usually look at what is the purpose for those in the first place. Like, if I want to, it could be something super simple like I want to have a new car, or I want a certain thing, or I want to travel someplace. It's like, well, why do I want to do that to begin with? And now it may be a status thing or an experience. You want to see these pretty things, but why do you want to do that in the first place? Like, what's causing that? What's worth it for you? Now, those everybody will come up with their own, pros and cons lists as to why they do their things, why they want the things that they want, but we don't have control over those circumstances anyway. Like, oh, I just love seeing new things. Well, why do you love seeing new things and traveling places? There's something always more. There's always a cause to the effect. And our lives, the way we usually live them, is that we're at the very end of the effect. You know, we're the last piece of things, and we don't understand that there's 100 causes to get to where we're at. Metaphorically, it's like a dominoes. It's like we're the last domino to fall, and so we're experiencing that fall, but we don't understand that 100 other dominoes had to fall to take us down. And that's the same thing with our drives and our inspirations and what we want to do. So if you think about it that way, it's almost like a never-ending search of what is causing what, and what that means in a positive and a negative sense, like an attraction and an aversion, because it goes both play into what causes the next thing. And so when it's free will and we think about it, and it usually gets termed in manifestation and law of attraction, it's, oh, I'm gonna feel my way into having this thing or being this thing that I'm not yet. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that, wow, that's really true, and you can just vibrate your way somewhere. But what's to say that you weren't destined to already do that, because that was the course that you were on? It's like the 98th domino is falling, and it's going to make this situation where you want to attract certain things into your life. And we think that's free will, but really that's been on a destined course for many, many, sequences of events and happenings. And we're just at the end effect of it, and we're thinking we're doing it, but we're not actually doing it. We're not the sole cause and creation of the thing we want to attract. It's a necessary piece in the destiny unfolding. Like, we could reject it, but we're not the sole cause, right? Because everybody could say, oh, I want to, manifest all the wealth in the world, but not everybody can, obviously. And what allows people to do it successfully and others to not? And most people who are successful would probably be a little self-righteous in that and say that you're just not doing it right, or that you're not vibrating correctly. But there's so much more that goes into it, that has a part to play in it. So with the free will and destiny, it gets to this point of, well, what's the point of trying? At least that's where I have been sitting with it, at least, is like, okay, well, what's the game between striving versus allowing? Like, how much do I want to put out and put energy into changing things, versus how much do I want to allow what's coming to me and relate and work with those things, and just go with the flow of life and nature and where I'm getting guided, right? Because it's effort to strive and to change things that aren't changing on their own. And sometimes that's necessary, and sometimes we can try all we want and it won't change. But the main point is that we are programmed, for better and for worse, to want certain things and to want to experience certain things. And there is value and importance in being in that space at that time, and not trying to force yourself out of that space, right?